Never mind, Rachel's not watching.
I haven't watched it. No. I did dissertation.
That's very cool.
You're just like me for real.
It's awful.
Yeah. It's really bad. It's recording.
Alright, it's definitely recording?
You say it like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. Are you just recording on your phone camera?
Yeah, because it's way better than
Awesome sauce. Nice.
my laptop camera. My laptop camera is kind of dog, I won't lie to you.
That's how it's a laptop camera. It's absolutely no problem. Alright, what time are we on?
14:23. Sorry, 4:23.
I'll blast through this before 5, I won't worry too much about that. So, awesome. So, hey, I'm Serena, pronounced she, her, and I'm going to talk about transgender representation in video games. So, I'm not from around these ends, so I'm going to do a quick intro to who I am and like my kind of history and stuff. So, I find that funny. Wow, unbelievable. Yeah, so I'm British, sorry about that. I'm also transgender, so that's pretty cool. That finds us out. Yeah, so I'm a game design graduate from the University of Galway, graduated 2022. I had my own indie game studio for a while there. It's called Designer Games. We were funded by the AP Games Fund. It was a really fun experience. I'm currently pretty actively just looking for work. I do have the history of indie game development behind my back and working in that sort of field. And then generally, I've been playing games since I was like literally one. I was playing really around on the PC. It was, and I've been fan of games throughout my entire life. And yeah, I think games are a really awesome platform to tell really interesting stories about characters. So let's dive into it. Just quickly, content warning. I'm going to keep this as light as possible. I want this to be a really positive talk. But there will be some mentions of some not great stuff. So outdated terms might be used. Some general non-fun stuff. So be prepared for that, but it won't be too bad, I promise. And I'm going to talk about this like you understand what a transgender person is in some very basic terms. If you don't understand anything I'm talking about, or if anything is like a little bit, you're not getting it, absolutely grand, let me know, and I'm very happy to have a discussion about it. If you have any questions about anything further, be very, very comfortable to talk about it. That's absolutely no problem. So specifically what we'll be discussing is, so I think it's very easy to look at a story very linearly and be like, this is the character, this is how they're presented. But I think games can be pretty unique because game franchises are long-running series, 20 plus years. Some of the biggest franchises we have are 30 plus years old. They've been going since the 70s, since the 80s, 90s. Like, we've been able to see characters and stories evolve so much from then. So I want to take a look at, alright, how has they evolved with times? Is it better? Is it worse? And yeah, generally looking at like, alright, how is this done and what makes this unique to games? So the first, and so this is going to be broken up into 3 categories with specific clear areas. So the first one is the implication. So this is going over translations, this is going over the implied transness in a lot of characters, and kind of wishy-washy representation, and some characters that aren't explicitly defined, but we'll go into it with this first character, but quickly, a bit of context. So we live in a modern world, we have internet, we have technology, everything is very accessible, but this wasn't always the case, especially in games. So, for example, a lot of the story in a lot of the games would be through game manuals, which we sadly don't get anymore, but we get a lot of story and context from there. And also, translation work was done very differently. While now, we have remote studios all across the world that do great translation work, that work with original teams, that work with people from different origins, like, that wasn't exactly a thing back then, and translation was very limited in a lot of cases. So, our first character I'm going to talk about is Poison from Final Fight Street Fighter. So a bit of context, Final Fight is a beat-em-up game from the 90s by Capcom, and Street Fighter is 1v1 fighter from Capcom. So Poison originally is from Final Fight. She is the main boss of the Mad Gear Gang, who are the antagonistic force that Mike Hagar, Cody, and all the characters in the game have to fight against. So in the Japanese version, she's meant to be seen as like this cool, sexy boss, and like really overtly feminine, as you can tell from that design, goddamn. But like, they were really concerned, especially, so this game came out early 90s, they were concerned about the impression that being not women had in the game, and they were very worried about that for a Western market. So in Japan, they specifically said they used the term new half for this character, which is not a great term. I don't really want to say the words it means in English, but yeah, it basically means she's a trans woman, so their justification was she's not really a woman, it's that you hit her, which isn't fun, but wahoo 90s. And in America, she was just straight replaced with those punk guys. So yeah, she was in Final Fight 1, 2, 3 in that series, and then she came back for Street Fighter. She was cameo in Street Fighter 3 in '99. She came back as a fully playable character in Street Fighter 4 in 2012, and Street Fighter Cross Tekken in 2010. So she's made a bit of a comeback recently. She's in Street Fighter 4 and Street Fighter 5, and her transness is still really wishy-washy, and it's not really discussed a lot. So I think the main theory going on at the moment is in Japan, she's a post-operation trans woman, or she's cis, and then in the West, in America and Europe, she's trans. But then sometimes they say she's fully trans, which isn't the best representation, and I really wish Capcom would just explicitly say this is what Poison is, straight up. But overall, I think Poison's still really cool, because if she's trans, she's just a really awesome, feminine, badass character, and I think that's really good representation to have. So, next character I'm going to discuss is Vivian from Paper Mario 1,000 Year Door. So, Paper Mario is a 2002 GameCube title. So, Vivian is very similar case to Poison, as she is trans in some regions, but not in others. So, in English, she's a part of these like ghost dudes, and she gets ostracized by sisters because she's ugly, or like general cattiness like that. But in some regions in Europe, and especially Japan, she's explicitly said as trans, and her sisters call her mannish and stuff, etc., etc. So yeah, it's really cool that we have a Mario character like explicitly trans, but again, it's only in certain regions. And on that note, so Birdo's really strange, because Birdo is very constantly cited as the first trans character, but that's from them just making shit up in the manual. So going back to what I said earlier about information not like coming from manuals and stuff, they called this guy Ostro and just lied and said he was a crossdresser who threw eggs. Which, if you look at that sprite there, I don't know how you get it from that. Like, I don't know what they were cooking. And in the mainline Mario series, that's never mentioned again. She's always called she's always called Birdo, and that's just that. But in a lot of other media, she's hinted at as being trans. So, for example, here in Smash Brawl, on the Wii in 2010, her trophy is listed with that Super Mario Bros. 2 information. And then there's a retitle called Captain Rainbow, which is exclusive to Japan, where there's a specific storyline about Birdo getting taken out of a women's bathroom because they think she's a guy, and you have to find evidence that she is a girl. And I'm not going to get into it, but it's interesting to say the least. But yeah, it's again kind of wishy-washy. But on the Nintendo train, and just talking about general non-conformity in games, a bit of a lighter note, I think the Zelda series is gay as hell, and I think it is really cool that the series has been able to show off a lot of gender non-conforming traits and appeal to especially the trans audience with Link. Like, so specifically for Link, in Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, the producers have pretty consistently said that Link is meant to be like a palette for anyone, and a lot of the male trans audience have taken that as Link being a trans man. I think that rocks, because spoiler, there's not a lot of trans male representation in games at the moment, so that's really fun. And then Zelda and Sheik, Ocarina of Time, one of the biggest games of all time, 1998, for a big stable game to have a gender non-conforming character like that who changes her appearance to more masculine, I think that's really rare, and I think that's really, really cool to see from a game that's so ahead of its time. And I think generally, transness has been part of the game for such a long time, and I want to touch on that with some very explicitly, they're trans, no ifs, ands, or buts, no magazine from Germany from the 80s or whatever, like straight up, these guys are trans. So the first character, if you've been on the internet for the last 10 years, you've seen Bridget. So Bridget is from a series called Guilty Gear. It's a long-running fighting game franchise. This Bridget is from Guilty Gear Accent Core plus R, which is a mouthful, and also the series' first entry, and it's kind of build up of that first entry. So the story behind Bridget is she was growing up in a village that had a myth that two siblings couldn't be the same sex. So Bridget was raised as a girl, but then in plus R, she was she wanted to reclaim masculinity, and was like, I want to use he/him pronouns, and I'm a guy, and they were like that sort of character for a very long time, very like prominent on the internet. But then recently, with Guilty Gear Strive, which came out very recently, Bridget is just straight up trans now. She's kind of gone back on her storyline and kind of evolved to just being trans, which I think is what they always wanted to do with Bridget, but because it was a game in late 90s, early 2000s, there wasn't exactly a space to really discuss that, so now we're in a more modern time. We can have Bridget be openly trans and get so much positive recognition from the community, and in general, her design has a lot of trans elements as well. Like people point out like the dysphoric hoodie, or like her covering up elements that she might not like about her. Like it's really cool rep and shows the guys care. And on the Guilty Gear train, this is Testament. Testament, like Bridget in plus R, was just generally like ambiguous, but in Strive, they're just straight up non-binary. They're I think specifically they said agender, which is not a term you hear a great deal in media, and I think it's really awesome that, and I think it also shows like they always want to have a non-binary character, but now because of the social climates, they have a way where they can make this awesome non-binary character and just make a really awesome design and make it really fun. I had to do some research on Guilty Gear Story just to confirm all this. Did not know what the hell was going on in that. I want to apologise to all the Kingdom Hearts fans. It's so strange. It's on Gears, there's a war, Japan explodes, it goes crazy. And then on that sort of Japan tone, Grand Blue Fantasy is a mobile RPG. It's a gacha game with a shared load of different characters. In 2020, there was a game called Grand Blue Fantasy Versus, which was a 2D fighting game which had these characters in. And I love both of them so much. So these guys, I think of as the yin and yang of transgender representation, and they're both valid and they're both awesome. So La Diva, I like to see as socially trans, while Cagliostro is medically trans, and their approaches to their gender are completely different. So La Diva is this big buff woman who presents very masculine, but she feels feminine and she treats everyone with respect. And like she says, I was born with this big hardy body to help people in pain. Like she uses her body not as a curse, but as a mechanism for her to protect her friends, and I think that's awesome. While Cagliostro is an alchemist, and she used alchemy to change her body and to live for longer, and decided to do it as a cute girl. And I think that's also like the other side, that she's totally valid, medically changing, and I think that from such a modern game, this is some of the best and most fun trans representation we've had in a while, and that's really positive to see. And you guys saw it at the start, but Madeline from Celeste. So Madeline isn't explicitly said as trans in the game. Never throughout the game is it explicitly said Madeline is trans. This article here is from a blog post from the creator Maddie after the game came out. When she came out as trans, funnily enough, she found a lot of her experiences creating Madeline and telling that story, that she discovered that about herself, which is really cool. But it comes from the conversation, is Madeline a good trans rep? I want to argue yes, mostly because we'll take what we can get. but also I think that interpretation is like the story that she goes through in Celeste is incredibly valid, and it's shared by a lot of trans women. And while it's not explicitly said in game, it's a totally valid trans rep, and I really appreciate that they finally come out and just confirmed it straight up. So, talking about games and medium, I've listed just characters here, characters you can play, but there's a little bit more than just characters in games. Because, as I've mentioned a few times, transness is like, just, I think, LGBT and trans is linked throughout the entire games industry. And I think that's what it's seen by the people who make the games and some of the features in said games. So I just quickly want to bring up, so boring stats for a second, but really, really awesome stats. To keep you on board. That's a swan I found outside my house, and that's my dog. So just to keep you guys entertained for a little bit. But yeah, 8% of the games industry is composed of non-binary, transgender, or genderqueer individuals. As a global population, trans is tiny, and it's so much bigger in the games industry. And I think that rules, and I think it's really, really cool. There's a lot of problems with the games industry, and there's a lot of things we can point out, but I think it's just as important to praise when an environment is so accepting of trans, non-binary, gender non-conforming people. And as you guys have seen with some of the reps, it allows authentic trans characters, and I think that's so important to representation. It's so easy with like Bird or whatever to go, oh, she's trans, but not really do anything, while other characters are just trans at their core, and it's so important to tell. And the best trans character in gaming? You guys. So character creators have always been a big part of games. Everyone loves character creators. They're a way for a game's story to be built around like a nondescript character. They're a way to do so much and have a lot of player expression. And I think games have gotten really, really good at creating an authentic character creator that allows for trans, gender non-conforming people to feel valid. So a lot of games recently have stopped using gender terms. They use they for the character straight up, or there's a pronoun picker. They don't lock options by gender, so you can have a female body with masculine body hair or masculine proportions, and there's so much freedom. And I think that is so important, because how many people have had their eggs cracked by making a girl character in a game and something clicking with them? And yeah, I think it's really, really important, especially because so much of games is super gay. So yeah. Alright, so what's next? Like, where do we go from here? Let's keep doing stuff, man. Let's keep making cool characters. Let's keep going, because we've improved so much in the game space, making cool trans characters, and I think we can keep getting better, keep hiring trans people, keep listening to what they're saying, keep making cool characters. Make trans male characters, please. I was searching. The best I got was the link. It's like, seriously, I think there's one area that needs to improve. Also, just generally non-binary characters, I think we can do a little bit better at, but yeah, it's only going to go up from here. So that's super slim. And thank you. So I'm Serena Green on everything, or Zaga somewhere, Serena Green on LinkedIn. So yeah, if you guys want to add me after this, really appreciate that. Any questions straight away?
What's the dog name?
Max. His name is Max. He's a Patdale Terrier. He's like 12 something years old. He enjoys a little baby, and I love him very, very much. Damn, I did a good talk with not getting any questions. Thank you guys very much for letting me do this. Really appreciate this.